Hey, so those are the numbers, and I think it's going to be important to just keep an eye on that and keep track of that. Like I said before, be prepared, know what's kind of going on, because when those numbers are starting to shoot up and everybody starts panicking, know that hey, this is kind of expected. There is a reason why all of a sudden I think our government realized that hey, this is a big deal. So there's been a lot of kind of movement to social distance, shut everything down. So hey, people stay put in, and we don't end up spreading this even further than it is. I think the initial reports coming out of Italy is pretty concerning. I'm not going to go into all the, you guys, I'm sure the media has been covering it, but I think the most concerning thing is, they're coming up with guidelines in terms of how to allocate resources. Who gets the vent, who gets the ECMO. They are in their wards. They have psychologists in the wards, which kind of tells you something. I think it's probably psychologically pretty tough. I think most of us who go into medicine, we want to do good, right? We want to save people, and I think it's probably pretty tough to be kind of in a situation where your hospital is getting overrun. You don't have the vents, and you have to go through guidelines in terms of who gets the resources, who gets the ventilator, who gets the ECMO, and how do you decide? It's I read somewhere like this. How do you decide between, let's say, a 40-year-old with 3 kids who is slightly overweight, doesn't really have any comorbidities, and let's say a 40-year-old, exact same thing, but he's fit as could be, but no kids. Who gets the vent? Well, if you compare those two with a 65-year-old who's been a staple of the community, who is just a model citizen, right? How do you decide? When you don't have enough resources. I think we've all been in these difficult situations before in medicine, but we've never had to make those choices. And from that perspective, I think hopefully gives people an idea out there, just like, hey, just stay at home, like, don't bitch and moan about it, because the more we're able to flatten that curve, right, the more we're able to do in the hospitals. Give us a chance, right, to save people that can be saved, because this is not just an old person disease. This is not just a 70, 80, 90. Yes, they are the ones that kind of get knocked off, right? But from what I could tell from the numbers, I think what happens is, hey, just because, you don't die, it doesn't mean you don't have to be hospitalized. And I think Italy is really showing that. The numbers came out from China, and I think, we weren't really taking it seriously. But right now, Italy, the first wave were older individuals. They came in and they were kind of the 60 plus, and doctors are describing, hey, the second wave coming through, once the younger people lose their physiological reserve, then they start rolling into hospitals, right? And now this is kind of what's going on. They're getting overrun, and I think that is the reason for this such a dramatic response, right? I mean, a week ago at this time, I was still trying to convince people that this was a real deal. And now, I think for all of us, who was saying this is probably going to be a problem, we just really hope that we were wrong. And hopefully we still are. Hopefully what we're doing is going to flatten the curve, but, it looks like from the data, we do need to brace ourselves. What are we doing in our medical system? I think things are mobilizing pretty quick. Yes, we don't have the testing, and really it doesn't make a difference to the general person. We saw on that. Right now at this point, there's a lot more mild cases than there are severe cases. So again, if you don't get tested, can't get tested, not a big deal. If you're fine, go ahead, get yourself quarantined. The recommendations are changing all the time. So in terms of how long you quarantine and whatnot, that's going to change. But, from the onset of symptoms until resolution, you want at least 14 days and probably 72 hours of being fever free. Although I think that's questionable, because there there's a lot of anecdotal data to say fever isn't always, a reliable indicator. So, so we're totally gearing up. I think, elective surgeries, like what you've been hearing on the news, are getting canceled. It's pretty much all hands on deck. If you work at the hospital, you are getting reassigned. If you were working in elective procedural areas, you're getting sent to the floors. Everything is kind of getting converted. Ventilators getting brought out. There's also a lot more coordination, right, between the systems. So we're a pretty decentralized medical system with all these, like, for example, here in Colorado, you have Centura, Health One, Kaiser, UC Health. Man, it's so fragmented. So everybody's trying to work together to make sure that we get people taken care of. And same thing out in the rural communities. This is going to be something that's really important for rural communities. And I'm going to do a separate video in terms to kind of let people know what we've been doing out in the San Luis Valley in terms of trying to coordinate the hospitals and coming up with a good game plan. So things are getting mobilized, but I think people need to understand that, this will overwhelm our system. I'm not here to create panic. I've been accused that, hey, this is public health situations, like, don't cause panic. And again, my stance is information is what's important. Knowledge is what's important. Panic, like I said before, unfortunately, is when you tell people this is the flu, and then 2 weeks later everybody starts dropping. That's how you create panic. So I think we're doing a much better job in terms of getting the word out there, getting knowledge out there, and just getting people informed that this is serious. And a lot of people have asked, how long is this going to last? I think people are expecting a few weeks. It's a lot of these lockdowns are like, hey, we're going to go ahead and reevaluate in 2 weeks or so and see what happens. And again, just to be completely straight with everybody, the only country that we have to kind of track that is China. They're the only country right now that has been able to kind of quote flatten their curve, decrease their new cases, and kind of bring it down. And it started, their first cases in China was at the end of December. They had a lockdown. I think they locked everything down in the third week of January. So we're kind of in the third week of March, right? So we're kind of 2 months behind them. They're not back, in a normal, kind of functioning, society prior to COVID by any stretch of the imagination. They think that they could get things back up and going and back online in April. So it's going to happen, but if we track the same way as China, let's kind of just say, kind of middle of the April or third week of April, right? So they locked down in January until the, let's just say third week of April. You're looking at 3 months. This is not going to be a 2-3 week kind of thing, okay? This is going to be much longer. And this is just from the quarantine, lockdown, medical side of things. 3 months probably be minimum because China was a lot more aggressive. They went out, they locked everything down, contact tracing, pretty much every person was tracked. Again, I couldn't verify this, but I have read on multiple accounts that they even took ibuprofen and Tylenol off the shelves. That way, they could track fevers. So when you walked out of your apartment, got to a checkpoint, they scanned you, went in to get groceries, they took your temperature. So then they knew if you had a fever, they could go ahead and test you for COVID, put you in one of these temporary hospitals or quarantine locations. And as you got sick, you got transferred to higher and higher levels of care. So, unfortunately, I do not think that this is going to be this is not going to be a 2-3 week, even a month kind of thing. We're looking at a minimum of, I think, three months. And, the economic impact is going to be sizable, right? Look at how much it has closed down. Jobs are being lost already. If you're in Colorado, any of the service industries, kind of outdoors, ski, kind of got shut down early. Hospitality, all of these are going to get hit. I had gyms, One of my tenants, kind of texted me today. He works at two gyms. He has two jobs, and he's a trainer, and he's like, hey, look, both my gym closed. I just want you to know that. So this is going to be a long-term, kind of a long-term slog, and we're going to have to, kind of work with each other to pull through, and we're going to get hit. I am not an economist, I'm a physician, but I have no doubts that we're going to go into a recession. There's just no way, and it's worldwide too, right? So I think that's going to be a big issue moving forward. And yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but brace yourself. It's not going to be a 2-3 week kind of thing. So and I just want to share kind of personal impacts, and hopefully I could kind of share this, and as we move kind of forward, so kind of COVID has already hit pretty close to home. We're all fine, we're all okay, but somewhat at our kids' preschool, one of the kids tested positive for COVID. It's a presumptive positive. They still have to confirm, but for all intents and purposes, I think right now, because CDC is no longer confirming, any presumptive positive case is now treated as a positive. So kind of in the preschool that our kids go to, there's now a case of COVID. And how this affects my wife and I is we both work, in medicine. I'm a ER physician, and my wife works as a nurse in the procedural kind of labs. So this changes things, right? So now we can't have our kids obviously still go to school. So we're pulling them. But now what, right? So, do we get quarantined? No, we haven't had any sort of symptoms or anything, but you could see how this kind of spirals pretty quick. Someone has to take care of the kids. Our go-to were always the grandparents, but we're not going to put them at a higher risk. They already have a lot of health problems, so we weren't even sending our kids over there, to begin with when this thing started breaking. So now Hill probably needs to kind of take time off her job, right? How much PTO, how much sick time do you have? Do you do FMLA? So, she wants to work, but, we can't, and for me, same type of thing, right? If I get sick with COVID, we don't have enough tests, right? They're saying that as a healthcare provider, you'll get SWAT, but I can't just get myself quarantined for 14 days out in critical access hospitals. For those of you who work on rural areas and are in critical access hospitals, that, we're already short-staffed as it is. You take a physician out for 14 days, that puts a lot of stress on the other physicians. Right now we are still kind of at our usual pace. Nothing's picked up, but it's going to be tough if someone gets taken out, right? And if I have just like minor symptoms, right? What's okay? Like, do I still see patients now, even though, I have fairly close contact? Kids are fine, but we don't have enough data on the kids. We know that it doesn't seem to affect them, but are they asymptomatic carriers? Are my kids infected right now? I just don't know. I mean, they're fine. They're running around. There's no fevers, but like, if I start feeling something, is that COVID? I don't know, right? I think these are all questions that we're trying to sort through, and we're trying to sort through pretty quick. So this is, like I said, a fast moving situation, but I just want to kind of share that with you guys, just to show, how much of this could impact everybody pretty quick, right? So now, for us, the way things are going is Hill probably needs to go ahead and stop going to work, right? That takes a nurse out of the nursing pool of, people who could help when things really hit the fan. We have the same problem out in the rural areas, right? It's when schools close out there, how much staff are we going to lose? And it's not just nurses and physicians, right? I mean, your cleaning staff is critical to turning over rooms, to make sure everything is sanitized. There's so much back-end support. Your lab, God, I could just go on. And that's just a small hospital, you know. So, I think it's going to be an issue. And, I think when this thing starts getting pretty, hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but if it starts kind of ramping up really quick, I think we might have some attrition because, hey, medical personnel, I don't think anybody, I think we all know that this was a possibility, but, I don't think a lot of us were necessarily, I don't think we're going to be prepared for kind of what we may see. And we're definitely not prepared for what's been going on in terms of the stories that we hear coming from Italy. So I just want to say, to everybody, thank you for, heeding the advice and the recommendation from, kind of the local, state, and national, kind of government. I think we're starting to get our act together. So I think that's good. And we just need everybody to take part. This is not going to be something where, it's certainly not going to be helpful if you define your quarantine and you hear all these stories, get on a plane and, God. So hey, we're all in this together. Be good to one another, and I'll keep on giving you guys updates. And again, if you find these videos helpful in terms of just kind of real life situations and whatnot, go ahead and hit like and give it a subscribe, and I'll keep on kind of putting out more and ask questions. I'll go ahead and kind of throw some, I think, the way I'm trying to kind of do these videos is kind of give you guys a little bit of idea of what's kind of going on, how to kind of think about this situation in the long run, and also kind of what's practical. So I think right now, just, hey, get your food, stock up your fridge. No need to go crazy. I still do not think, services are ever going to get, kind of axed, right? China never kind of lost their supply chain. Italy, you can still go to the groceries, you can still get food. It's just that they don't want you to go out. They want you to stay at home. So I'm going to, the next video, hopefully I could kind of have one of my friends come in. He's a former Navy fighter pilot, entrepreneur, and he's going to kind of just talk to, kind of share his experience about just risk management. I think that's probably going to be pretty useful, I think, for a lot of us in terms of managing risk and deciding, hey, what's important, what's not. If I'm forced to get on a plane to go somewhere, is it worth it? Kind of given these current situations. So, like I said, thank you everyone for just being good to each other, and best of luck to us all. Okay, have a good one. Good night.